Get on the train before it leaves the station. The truth train is coming, gonna run them down, run them down.
Hello there, everybody. Merry Christmas. This is a little Air Coze Christmas special. I'm recording this on Christmas Eve and uploading it for a premiere that you're seeing now. So today, you guys will see that the name of the video is basically my travel, my travels down Avery Road, right? And that's basically going to be my journey. I'm just going to talk about basically the last 4 years, and that's what it's been. Well, for me, January 15th of 2020 will be 4 years. So we're pretty darn close to that right now. And just talk about what it was like. I mean, the place where I think I'm going to start personally is what it was like for me. I mean, we obviously know Making a Murderer, the first series, came out in December of 2015. I believe it was December 15th or something like that of 2015. And it was out for a little while. I was seeing billboards for it and everything, but wasn't sure what to make of the billboards. But so I saw the billboards and was like, And in my work, I work with, electronics and stuff like that. So I would often be at somebody's house and doing an install or doing something and testing things out before I leave. And I would often go into either the Apple TV or the Blu-ray player, whatever they were doing their streaming through, and I would test the streaming. And the easiest way to do that was to just go into Netflix, because everybody sets, 90% of people set up their Netflix. So it's just an easy way to test the streaming. But what I would find is that I was often going in to test, the streaming in some of my clients' houses, and I would see Making a Murderer was there. It was either the last thing watched or it was in the recent queue. And I was just like, I kept seeing it, and I noticed that a lot of people were watching it. So I was just like, So I eventually, on January 15th of 2016, I watched it. It took me 2 nights. Me and my girl watched it over 2 nights, 5 episodes each night. And the whole thing is I certainly thought the investigation was sketchy. It didn't seem right. I felt Stephen deserved a new trial. But as I've said in the past, and I know some of you know, I wasn't convinced of his innocence so much at that point. But I didn't feel like he had gotten a fair shake. However, Brendan, on the other hand, I was 100% immediately on board that he was 100% innocent. I watched what was going on there and just went, what the hell is going on? How is this allowed to happen? How the hell do we allow investigators to get away with this crap? With these, kids like Brendan. And there's lots of them. Brendan's not the only one. And a lot of those, juvenile, confession convictions that have been overturned now, pretty much all those guys are now supporting Brendan, because they see it as a case and they see it as an example of what's going on in our system and what's being allowed and what's being perpetuated. So it's interesting to note that. So, but like I said, it was Brendan had me just from the first, word go, essentially. I just couldn't believe that was acceptable. It just blew my mind. And so I was taking it to work with me after watching it, so by the 18th and 19th, I'm at work and I'm sitting there thinking about it all still and just wondering, what's going to happen? And I wonder if they're ever going to get out. A lot like a lot of people were wondering, and it just was in the back of my mind. I couldn't shake it, and it was in the back of my mind. And I'll even be honest, folks. I mean, I even had when I went diving in and looking into the documents and stuff, I honestly was hoping in a way, because I didn't want this bothering me and everything, because it was back in the beginning. I hadn't decided that I wanted to do this just yet. And so I was honestly hoping I was going to find something there that would show me that wasn't tainted, that would actually be convincing proof of Stephen's guilt. Never found that. I only found more reasons to question what the hell the prosecution was doing. And that's the way it came down in the end. And then, if you look, as we've gone on through the 4 years, only more and more has come out. That's mud in the prosecution's face. It only keeps coming out against the prosecution in the state. It's nothing is coming out that's like, oh yeah, Stephen's guilty. That's showing anything like that. It's continuously coming up, not in favor of the state. CD, Bones, just so many things. The Hoodlatch DNA. I mean, just on and on. It's just bizarre and ridiculous, right? So I dig in, and I eventually took a while. It didn't happen quickly. Look, I'll tell you guys, as I've told you before, and it's why I keep doing videos about the blood. The blood was a big problem for me. It's very difficult to plant somebody's blood. This is a very difficult thing to do. So that's why I struggled with Stephen for so long. With Brendan, there was no physical evidence in any way, shape, or form to implicate him. So that was one of the reasons it made it easier with Brendan. But with Stephen, that blood, all the other evidence, I was like, yeah, okay, that's all fishy as hell. That's 2/5 of only 40% of her remains, and that's supposed to be the primary burn site? No. And just on and on it went. But that blood in the RAV it was more difficult. Then we had the blood vial. But it was like, now we have the sink. But then I found out that Colburn and Link had the ability to reliquefy blood because they had the right kind of water it takes to do it in their evidence kit. So then I realized, well, they could have found Stephen Avery's blood in any number of places and reclaimed some of it. And then I went and looked at the way that the blood is in there, and it's just not drips, it's smudges. It's like somebody was trying to smear some of Stephen Avery's blood in places. That's what it honestly looks like. And so I'm not, and I'm saying it could have been them. It also could have been the killer. It could have come from the sink in Stephen Avery's sink, bathroom sink. Could have come from that blood. That's also, highly possible. It could have been, like I said, it could have been a couple different ways that it was planted in my mind. But like I said, I struggled with that for a long time. And it wasn't easy to just dismiss, because it's, like I said, hard to fabricate somebody's blood. So there I was, January 20th or so, getting home from work, and I decide I want to throw Making a Murderer back on again. I want to watch it again. I want to go through it and absorb it again. But as I'm doing that, I'm busting out my laptop. I'm surfing through Facebook, finding Facebook groups, finding information, finding links to documents, all that sort of stuff. And that's when it started for me, and I started to, as they say, go down the rabbit hole. That is the Stephen Avery, Brendan Dassey cases. And from then on, that's been it. I mean, I've been following these things pretty darn closely now for, like I said, 4 years. I will say, though, that originally, in that first year, in 2016, I didn't start making videos until it was something like September or October of 2016. It was late in 2016 before I started making videos. And, it's... it was mainly because of my friend, Johnny, and you guys will know him as Ripper. You kept pushing me, kind of prodding me and everything to do it. And so I eventually did. I did a video about Brendan and did a couple videos about Brendan, and then continued. Just continued from there to continue to make more videos as I was going through the documents. And I would just screen capture what I was reading, and whenever I would have a point to make, and I would make a video. So, and that was just kind of how I went along, and how I kind of crept along, and how I kind of came into doing what I'm doing. It wasn't like I knew what to do from the beginning. It's been a bit of a It's been a bit of a, learning process, a learning curve. But before I ever got to making videos, it was around April, I believe, of 2016 when Kathleen Zellner watched Making a Murderer. And that's when she got involved. And so that's when we all knew she was going to be involved or whatever. And we spent this very long time waiting for the compiling of the record. And that is something that I've thought is funny, folks, because we waited so long for that compiling of the record, and yet all that missing stuff never made it in, because it was the record being compiled for Stephen Avery's attorney Kathleen Zellner and everything, and yet those pages didn't make it in then. We waited for, it was at least, I think, 3 or 4 months we were waiting, maybe 3. It was a long time we were waiting for this record to be compiled. And I remember waiting for it and everything, and I used to make jokes like, I know there's a bonfire somewhere where they're, doing, but no, but it turns out there wasn't a bonfire, but they were holding things back. You know what I mean? So, but anyway, after waiting all that time, and then to now later find out that they were still not handing over everything, which, it just shows how dishonest they are. But she came on and so we spent those months waiting for the compilation of the record. And then after that, that's when she made her motion. She asked for, did her motion to do the scientific testing. And she was able to get, agreed. It was agreed that she would get the certain items, the bullet, obviously, and the hood latch swab and various other things that they got and everything. And so she has her experts check that all out or whatever. And so that takes time, and then eventually she puts together her motion for post-conviction relief. That's there being considered or whatever. And in the midst of that happening, Kathleen Zellner is actually talking with Fallon and the agents of the state, who all believe that this is headed towards an evidentiary hearing, which is why they were dealing with her. And so she's talking with them to get the RAV4 and other things or whatever. And then suddenly, before she can notify the court, because Fallon said they needed a couple days to get the logistics of getting the RAV to Calumet worked out, and in that 2-day period, the decision came and it was denied. The motion was denied, no evidentiary hearing, and suddenly the state is like making vapor trails, getting away from all the deals they were making with Zellner to let her test more evidence. So it's very, very interesting to watch, obviously. So that leads to the process of Kathleen Zellner filing amendments and filing new motions. When she, it was after the denial of the motion for post-conviction relief that the state suddenly hands over the CD, the Veely CD. And they hand it over then. So then she files a motion about that. It gets remanded back to the district court or the circuit court, and it gets remanded back, and Judge Sukowitz says no, nothing there, whatever, again, blah blah blah. Then it goes back, and so then as Kathleen Zellner is getting ready to do the motion to the Court of Appeals, she then asks to do the testing on the bones, and so we all know how that all went. And then that's basically when she finds out that they haven't given her certain pages of the investigation reports and ledgers, evidence ledgers, and so that's when she finds out that they've given it all back or whatever, and it became a due process violation. That gets remanded back. So it's been like going like that through Stephen's case. It's been like that, a lot of waiting, but with a lot of incidents in those waiting periods, basically, but a lot of filings and that sort of stuff. So that was Zellner coming on in April. It was pretty much like April, or I think March, April, or May of 2016, right in that area when she watched it and came on board. So soon after that, I believe sometime around June or so, is when we got the news about Brendan's conviction had been overturned by Judge Duffin. We had the 91-page decision from Judge Duffin where he was ordering Brendan released and all that sort of stuff within 90 days. And then I think the state literally waited until the 11th hour, like day 89, day 88, and filed a emergency motion to keep Brendan in to prevent him from being released. So they filed it with the circuit court, which is who they were appealing the decision of Judge Duffin. They were appealing it to the circuit court. And the circuit court decided to keep him in. Yeah. And then we know that there was a 3-judge panel. We know Brendan won 2-1. And then he was still kept in. And then we know that the state appealed for an en banc review and got it. And then suddenly the vote swings against Brendan after one judge steps down before the en banc review. So, yeah, you have that interesting little, things going on, basically. So, it's crazy, obviously, watching and following. But initially, Brendan was having great success. And I got to imagine that that's going to come back around. The en banc majority managed to put a cork on it, but I don't think the pressure has stopped building, and that cork's not going to last. That cork isn't going to stay. That's my opinion. So in the first year, it was interesting in those early days. We used to, for me, it was a lot of going on Facebook, going to StephenAveryCase.org, looking at documents, talking with people in groups, commenting and that sort of stuff. Obviously seeing any new developments, anything that people found that was new, that was interesting. I'd get home from work and I would catch up on the day, basically, and see. And back then, in the first 8 months to a year, it was crazy busy. There was a lot of people that were in those Facebook groups. It was crazy. It was over 100,000 people in various groups, but it was definitely over 100,000 people that were very much interested in what was happening and what was going on, and they were checking out these Facebook groups to learn more. And that's when I discovered Reddit. And I'd never heard of Reddit, never used it before. But once I got into this stuff, there was a lot of Reddit posts being put up in the Facebook groups. And so I was discovering Reddit, and going over there and checking out Reddit. And a lot of brilliant people were over there making a lot of brilliant observations and making very, very, cool posts, very interesting posts over there on Reddit. And so I discovered what that was and started to get familiarized with Reddit. Obviously, we have, you guys have seen a lot of the Redditors here on my channel. Had quite a few of them on during Mammothon. These are the people that are just out there researching this, and they're very good at what they do. They're very focused and dedicated. And so the Redditors are awesome. And then, and from the Redditors, it went, what we had was that, and then we had like the YouTubers. Okay, so there was a few of them. There was one that did a few videos, and I haven't really heard from him again. I'm forgetting what his name is. But we had obviously Casey Martinez, or as you would now know her, Casey Oliver, or Mama Phoenix. Obviously, I mean, yes, I watched hers. I dug, watching Casey's videos back then when I was still getting acclimated and getting into the case, because back then she was all making a murder. She had just watched it, and so she was just doing more and more of them. And I loved the way she would talk about Kratz, and she used to call him Wilbur and everything. It was so funny, and she used to crack me up. But it was great. Anyway, it was you had these YouTubers out there, like, again, Ripper, my friend Johnny, who you guys have met here on my channel. You had eventually, before I started, but after Johnny started, you had Laura, who most of you out there, or a lot of you out there, will know as Perplexed Cutie. That's Laura. She started, I think it was like July or August, of 2016 when she got started. And it was so funny at first. She was so mousy on the camera, and it was so funny. But yeah, I remember when she came along, and everything, and then I eventually got started, and and everything. But I used to love watching the YouTubers and all that stuff, and when I eventually got started myself, I I had I had learned a lot from watching the other YouTubers and the other, a lot of other people that had been commenting on the case, and some of the mistakes they made and some of the pitfalls they fell into. I really avoided. I made it a real point to make sure I was using a very certain particular style in the way that I conveyed my information. I was always mindful of certain sensitive topics and things like that, so I would, show those matters the appropriate care when I would, talk about them. I just, after watching some of the missteps made by other YouTubers, when I eventually got on YouTube myself, I had kind of developed a set of rules for myself that I do still follow. It's important to me to have that consistency. So it's and to not be sensational. I think that was a big part of where YouTubers can kind of get a little off track, is trying to get too sensational, trying to be, it's just not, it's not good. For me, being on YouTube talking about true crime, ego doesn't really fit. No, egos don't really fit. It's been my opinion. So, obviously, with the YouTubers, you obviously had the, we might say, guilt or troll commenters, right? Oh, here, wait, hold on. Let me just turn this around real quick. What does it say? So, here it is. Here's the just so you guys can all see there, So, you had obviously a lot of them. I remember early on, for me, it was, whoops, let me fix my hat. There we go. So, we had obviously some of the early ones. I remember very early, on when I did my video about Brendan getting released, I met King Bragg. Oh boy, that was a peach. King Bragg was a real peach. We met Scott UK, was another one. Scott UK had been on every YouTuber's videos. Big time guilt or troll, and not much substance, but lots of insults. Who else? I mean, we had so many. There was obviously a lot of the ones that we know now, that would be like, Charles Darwin. Where's the other? What's that other one? There's a few of them. You got, obviously, there's so many of these guilt or trolls and stuff like that. I mean, I honestly miss the one I miss, actually. I kind of miss Dorian Hawkmoon. You know what I mean? We had Dorian Hawkmoon commenting for a while. I just thought that was fun because, obviously, for those of you who don't know, Dorian Hawkmoon is another incarnation of the Eternal Champion, which Eric Jose is also an incarnation of the Eternal Champion. So I always thought it was a little bit amusing that it was two incarnations of the Eternal Champion pitted against each other. So I kind of miss Dorian Hawkmoon. But, there's a Woody Woodpecker Wood, or whatever, however that goes, using too many woods. But anyway, you got a lot of these, these guilt or troll commenters that would turn up. I remember even on Facebook, I would run into them because I hung out in the Innocent Guilty group, and I would run into a lot of the guilters and stuff there, and people that believed they were guilty anyways there. And I always preferred to have a conversation or to have dialogue with people that believed that they were guilty. I didn't believe it myself, but I liked knowing what they thought, and I liked maybe trying to get an understanding of how they perceived, this, in the way that they do. So I used to find that interesting, and so I spent a lot of time in those groups myself. Um, but yeah, talking about the early YouTubers, it was really interesting because I just kind of struck up a friendship with my friend Johnny, and he was obviously becoming a pretty popular YouTuber. He was starting to really, get the views coming in, and right about that time is when there was this big shakeup with the family group, the first family group on Facebook. It was run by the family, but there was somebody else that was helping them run it, and there was, I guess, some disagreements and some hurt feelings and things like that or whatever, and suddenly that person, I guess, ended up letting in some guilter trolls into the group without telling anybody else, and what those people, and made them like admins of the group, or made, and stuff. And then what they were able to do was kick everybody else out, the other admins out, and all that stuff, and started slowly purging the group of members. And then started making really nasty posts about Steven and Brendan in the family group and everything. And so people were coming into it just like, what the hell's going on here? They didn't understand. It was crazy. So we had the YouTubers were making videos to let people know. My buddy Johnny stayed up like all night that night watching what the guilters were doing so that he could document it for people, and was able to make a video to show them, this is what's going on. Don't panic. Da 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 da. He was able to kind of show them what had happened so that people could understand it, because they were just like coming into the family group and seeing these really nasty posts about Steven and Brendan, and just a lot of just childish kind of stuff, really. But it was pretty darn childish, really. So again, the guilty trolls, that's the way that they chose to conduct themselves, and actually was another reason why I to this day remind all supporters to keep it classy, because I watch the way that the guilters act, and they don't do themselves any favors acting the way they do. So that's why I'm always keen to push supporters to think of that about themselves, and make sure that their own conduct doesn't come off the way that some of these really, really ugly trolls come off. Sometimes it's easy to become a troll, because you can be so passionate that you can sometimes be inconsiderate and and that sort of thing. So it's something to keep in mind, right? So, all right. Obviously, Zellner eventually got to test the evidence, and most of you now know from the court filings what's been going on, and I've covered all of Zellner's filings, responses from the state, and all that sort of stuff here on my channel, so it's all there to be found for anybody that wants to find it. It's and then usually if you go to those videos, if you watch the video and there's something more you want to know or whatever, usually I have the document that the video was based on in the description down below, so you can always do that and go check that out. So now that we're done talking about the bad guys, we'll switch this back around. All right, there we go. So so that brings us to roughly, I don't know, say 2018. Zellner's filing her amendments, and she's trying to get Judge Sukowitz to consider the what she's saying, but she, which wasn't working out, but she filed a bunch of amendments and everything. So now all that stuff is now going to come under the umbrella of the current appeal. And that's a big part of why she wanted to mention that stuff now. And she was trying to get Judge Sukowitz, and she was making amendments and doing that sort of stuff, so that everything she was trying to say that she didn't get to bring up in evidentiary hearing, she'd be able to make that part of the appeal, right? So at least that's a big part of it, because obviously you have to bring everything all at once. Is a big part of the way the court sees things. They don't want piecemeal appeals. They really want people to bring it all together under one umbrella. I think that's kind of silly, honestly, because sometimes the evidence, doesn't become you can't even get the evidence because the testing that's able to do it doesn't become available till the future. But things like that. The idea is they encourage people to bring everything under one thing. So once they didn't end up in an evidentiary hearing, which is where everybody thought it was going, she had to get all the information she needed to get out there to be part of the appeal, because obviously she wasn't going to get into a courtroom to be able to argue it and get it on the record. So, and we've just been following along here ever since. We continue to watch the state avoiding, we see their antics, you know what I mean? It's, you guys saw in the video I did last night, where at the beginning I addressed Charles Darwin, and because Charles Darwin was saying, when did the state ever say animal bones? Okay, dude, you got me. They didn't actually say animal bones. No, realistically, they didn't want to say animal bones. They wanted to say anything but animal bones, and that's why they worded it the way they did. You know what I mean? So that it wasn't human biological material, or that it wasn't scientifically proven to be, or whatever however they wanted to phrase it. But the point is, they're saying it wasn't proven to be human biological material. So what are you handing back? If it's not proven, what are you handing back to the grieving family? Yeah. So I'm sure he thought that was a fine point, that the state didn't actually say animal bones, but the point is that's what they indicate. By saying it wasn't human, what's left? Right? Okay. So moving on to what I would call the last leg of this video here, is basically moving into the last about year and a couple months. And that basically means when in October of 2018, MAM2 Season 2 came out. And at that point in time, I started going live on my channel. And when I did, I quickly found that lots of people were finding me on YouTube, and they were coming to my channel and they were asking questions and were engaging me and wanting to learn more. And it was pretty crazy. And for 3 months straight, I was going live, and I was getting, pretty much an average of 100, at least 100 usually per live. And because people were into it. They just watched MAM2 and they were thirsty for information. They were figuring out where to find it, how to look into this stuff, all that sort of stuff. It was all on their minds. And so what ended up happening is it created, this community that we started. First, we started on Hangouts, created a thing, a community on Hangouts called, it was started out as the Cozy Heads. And then, or the Cozy Heads, and then it turned into, it was actually something like Saving Private Cozy at one point, and then it became the Wrecking Crew, and that's what it is now. And so you can see that I'm wearing the shirt there. So, but yeah, and the Wrecking Crew is awesome. It's just a community of people here researching Stephen and Brennan. Many of these people are members of other true crime communities and MAM communities, where they talk about the case. But obviously the Wrecking Crew is awesome. Big part of it for me watching, the people get, involved and being, enthusiastic about wanting to learn more and dig into the documents and that sort of stuff, and wanting to have conversations about this stuff. And that's, for me, that was the gratifying thing, because that's what I mainly do this for, is to help other people who are coming into it new, who might just automatically go, oh God, all that paperwork. Well, maybe you don't have to go through every single piece of paperwork. Maybe you just watch a few of my videos and you can get some ideas of where to look. So and that's basically what happened, is that so many people at that time were coming in the Wrecking Crew, and people were pulling things up and talking about certain aspects, and so people were going to look into that. And that's when people started figuring out how to look into the documents and learning how to use the website stephenavery.org and stephenaverycase.org. And so it was just great to watch a whole new rush of people, because it was like watching me and the people that I learned with back in the first year over on Facebook and everything, and on Reddit. It was like watching that all over again with a whole new group of people. And it was awesome. And to watch so many people flooding in and wanting to add to their knowledge about the case and all that sort of stuff was immensely gratifying. That's what I always really, really, truly wanted. It was the biggest goal I had, was like I said, helping new people get acclimated to this, case. So, Wrecking Crew started. I had the pleasure of, becoming friends with lots of new people, such as, Julie Pom Pom, Jamie, Sam William Henry 582, Jamie Hart, Ziggy, who obviously we're seeing right here. That's the pin commemorating Ziggy, because she is no longer with us, unfortunately. But she was a huge and powerful member of this community, in my opinion. She was very well liked. She was very helpful when we had special events like Mammothon and things like that. She was there doing massive amounts of things, doing her duties as moderators for all of us, but also doing other things, like she had stickers made, and she was, creating little giveaways for people that donated a certain amount. She would send them a sticker, and she was just, doing a lot of things to help make Mammothon a success, and other things a success, such as rally and things. She was always contributing. We love Ziggy very much, and we obviously remember her here, and so I wanted to say that. But we've gotten to meet so many great people like Denise Rainey, just the list goes on and on, to be perfectly honest. So many people. Like when we do the banner tour here, I've been recently having Rhonda has been coming down, here with me and Julie. Rhonda is awesome. You guys see, I did a live with her and Paul recently. She's very much into this case. She's, a very, very enthusiastic supporter of Stephen and Brendan. I've just gotten to meet so many great people, and that's another great part of this. Here at Christmas time to think back on the blessings, and I've gotten to meet a lot of great people since October of last year in 2018. But I've also met a lot of great people before that, and some of you may know, like Mr. Capaldi, obviously, and the Hod, Mr. Hodnot. I mean, I count myself lucky to consider those two gentlemen friends, because those guys have my back. Those guys are loyal friends. They, it's good to have those kind of people around you that you can trust, and those two definitely are. And I've begun to get to that point with some of my new friends. Obviously, it's, trust is a tricky thing, but I've really started to get to that point with certain people, and like I said, it's a great thing to watch, obviously, because the Wrecking Crew was not. I mean, we also had other things happening. You guys saw what happened with Paul Capaldi. He originally was going to do one video, okay, to talk about his emails with Herman. I encouraged him to do a second one. He was kind of dragging his feet. I go, come on, just one more. He did it. And at that point, he never stopped. He kept making... I didn't have to do anything after that point. He kept making the videos on his own. I was very gratified by that, to get another person speaking out about the case and everything. So that's awesome that he started up. And then with, the Wrecking Crew coming around, then I got Linda Kay. Linda Kay Listening over there started her YouTube channel, and she's speaking out about Stephen and Brennan and other cases, and the $50 million bullet, and the situation over there at Eagle Nation Cycles with Michael Funk, and she's helping me to report on that and keep that talked about. And so it's great to see these people rising up, such as Fenn over there, 80 More Things. She took the lyric from Stacy's song, It Really Matters, where 80 more, hashtag 80 more things, and she did her thing on Twitter for 80 days where she did a different thing every day, and now she started her podcast, and it's brilliant. It's a brilliant podcast. I was on it, Mr. Capaldi was on it, Jinxie's been on it. It's had great people on there. Stacy was on there recently, Mr. Seabrook, who you all know and love here. We love his music here. We love Stacy, very talented gentleman. So and these are all just people that I've been fortunate enough to know and meet because of my support of Stephen and Brendan, and I consider myself lucky and fortunate to have met a lot of these people. Obviously, there is some bad things that go along. Sometimes you get some negative people out there, or some trolls from the guilty side and stuff like that can be unpleasant. But all in all, the really great people that you meet kind of outweigh the jerks that you run into along the way. So yeah, it's just, it's great here at Christmas time to look back and reminisce and think about what a long road it's been for me. It's been a 4-year road at this point, and I mean, I'm not looking to give up. I'm in it until there's resolution, because if I was to walk away from it, it wouldn't be good. It wouldn't be a pretty sight. It would still bug me, and I would still be. I mean, I don't know if I could walk away from it, because it would still bug me mentally, and I wouldn't be able to walk away, honestly, to be honest, because I'd probably be able to walk away for a very short period, but then it would all be swirling around in my head, and I would be wanting to make a video, and then once I made one video, it would just be on again, right? So that's why I say I could never walk away from it myself. I know some people, it's overwhelming. You want to see something positive come, and you see that the courts aren't about positivity, and so you can kind of get down about it. I get it, I do. I get down too, but I continue to go, because I know that me sitting over here talking about the cases provides a continuity. Because a lot of people will phase out for a while and just kind of unplug from the cases. But generally they'll all come back, or they'll come back to check in. And one of the places they come is to my channel to see if I'm still putting out content over here. And I think it's, for a lot of those people, it keeps them coming back when they come to my channel and see that there's still consistent content. So it's another one of the reasons why I try to continue to give everybody something to rally around, a place to be, to talk about the cases, to meet with others and talk with others about it, and that sort of thing. And hopefully that's the type of thing I've created. It's what I hoped to create. And seeing the Wrecking Crew and what it became was pretty spectacular. And so I wanted to give a big thanks to everybody in the Wrecking Crew, everybody out there that's supporting Stephen and Brendan. Obviously they need it. They all need your support. The lawyers are doing everything they can to keep the pressure on this situation, and it's up to us to do our part to help them. And that's by us just continuing to pay attention, to keep our eyes on it, to be aware of it, and to be vocal about it. Classy but vocal, right? And to let those people know that we haven't forgotten. Nobody's forgotten. And it's not just going away, so that's hopefully what's going to lead to the flip or slip moment that I've been kind of hoping for and referring to. So that's what I think we're looking at, folks. Yeah, it's been a long, strange trip it's been, right? But no, ultimately I think it's been more positive than negative. Obviously the biggest positive thing hasn't come yet, but patience is what I would caution, or is what I would advise. So, all right, folks, I want to wish everybody a happy holidays. I hope you guys have a great rest of your Christmas day. You'll most likely be seeing me before New Year's, I'm sure, and we'll be talking about Stephen and Brendan. I will probably be doing something in regards to Eagle Nation in the Michael Funk case here between Christmas and New Year's. So for those of you who have been following that, please, keep your eye out for that. All right, folks, if you haven't already, please hit subscribe, and we'll see you.